You're listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 93. Starting a business is an amazing experience and journey, but it can also bring to surface many limiting blocks that you may not know were there, such as confidence and self-worth, to name a couple. So how do you navigate them to avoid letting them stop you from achieving your goals and dreams? Tune in to find out. So without further ado, let's jump on in. Hey there, I'm your host, Jessica Fergon, and I am passionate about doing the inner work needed to reach your goals. Let me be your guide as we navigate all the fears and insecurities that surface when it's time to step outside of your comfort zone. Along with my knowledgeable guests and industry experts, I'm here to teach you how to reawaken your life purpose and passion and create the steps to turn your intentions into action. Ultimately, my goal is to empower you to rise above those blocks holding you back and start living a life that you are worthy and deserving of. So come on, it's time to slow down, find a comfy spot with your favorite organic tea, and get inspired. Thank you for tuning in to the Love Unplugged podcast. Hello, loves. Today I am joined by the lovely Haley Payne, entrepreneur, host of Be the Girl podcast, and founder of The Daily Pretty, a digital destination for women to empower, motivate, inspire, and inform through collaboration, sharing stories, advice, lessons learned, plus skills and resources that can be utilized and implemented throughout their daily lives. So welcome, Haley. I am just so honored and so excited to have you as my guest, and I can't wait to learn all about your story and advice. But before we start, for those that don't know you yet, I would love for you to share a little bit about you.
Hi, Jessica. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Of course. So, as you mentioned, my name's Haley, and you mentioned sort of what I've been up to and what I'm doing. And I'm based in Australia, and yeah, so basically, I've had a corporate career most of my professional life, and then back in sort of late 2018. I sort of felt like I wanted more, and I wanted to sort of share my experiences with other women out there, modern women doing amazing things, and wanted to create this platform. So that's what I did, and it's been an incredible journey and learning curve, and yeah, such an amazing experience. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing, and a little snippet of how it started and why.
Awesome. So I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper with the Daily Pretty. How did that come to be? What inspired you to create it? Was it like a pivotal moment where just had a light bulb come on and you're like, oh, I need to move in this direction? Did you always want to be an entrepreneur, or was that kind of something brand new that you were navigating?
It was definitely brand new. Um, yeah, sort of in that late 2018, I'd sort of gone through, without sounding too dramatic, a bit of a personal transformation where I went through a period where I was feeling quite unfulfilled in my career, and then that was sort of started affecting me personally, and I was starting to question my abilities and what I was able to achieve in my career. Um, and it was mostly due to the role I was in at the time. So I decided to take some steps to change that, which I did. And then when I did that and actually moved into a role that I felt was, that I was, I guess, worthy of and was true to my abilities and my experience, I had kind of, yeah, I guess this light bulb moment of this feeling of empowerment. And I thought, you know what, the time is now. The time is because I'd kind of been toying with the idea of starting something like the Daily Pretty for a while, and I kind of just sat on it, and then yeah, that I realized this is the time. You've just gone through this experience yourself, so it's time to do it and put it in place and see how it goes. And that's what I did. And look, to be honest, it was so many learning curves. Like I'd never, I've worked in corporate. My skill set isn't in marketing or design. But in saying that, I am a creative person as well. So I really loved, exploring that side because I don't do so much of that in my career. So yeah, that's how it kind of started, and that was definitely the light bulb moment, or what inspired me to start the Daily Pretty.
I love that you said that, in your corporate world, the marketing piece and the design piece weren't really something that you dabbled in. So that was completely brand new to you, stepping into owning your own business and now having to understand and do the work in those areas. Because myself included, I had no experience in that area whatsoever. So now you're being thrown in as an entrepreneur into all these different areas of your business that you maybe just didn't have any experience in, and you're being forced to understand it and be able to learn it. So what was that like for you coming into those areas that were completely unknown and having to figure it out?
It was definitely interesting. Uh, I think the biggest thing I tried to make sure that I did is I just took one step at a time. Like, I just was really, I guess, kind to myself, and when I sort of really said to myself, don't expect to be an expert in any of these areas. You're just starting out. There's things that you're going to have no idea about, but that's okay. Like, that's part of the journey. That's part of learning, and probably why I set out to do it in the first place, for that little bit of a challenge, personal challenge, and learning new things. So it was definitely, yeah, interesting, challenging, probably at times frustrating. um, but as I mentioned, yeah, I wouldn't change a thing because it's definitely part of learning. And what do they say? The journey is the best kind of part. It's not the end point. The journey is the
Mm-hmm.
best part. So, but I guess advice I would give for anyone who's sort of thinking of starting something, and there's all of these areas that they have no idea about, like, that's okay. No one truly knows everything about everything, and we have our strengths and weaknesses. So just use that to your advantage, and be willing to kind of accept that some things are going to be harder than others, and ask for help when you need it. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. So many times I've heard people say that they don't want to start something until they know everything about it. But the thing is, you're
Mm.
never going to know everything about everything, right? Like, don't let that be a reason for you to hold up the process of beginning whatever you're wanting to begin, right? And everything is like researchable, right? Is that even a word? But like, Google is your best friend. Reach out to people like through Instagram, or anybody that you find on the internet that might be an expert in that area, and see if they have courses or resources. Like, there's so much information available at our own fingertips now, at you will be able to figure it out as you go. You don't need to have it all figured out right from the onset.
Absolutely. And, you know, but you're going to continue every day to have things pop up that you're like, I've got no idea what this is or how to do this, and that's okay. Like, I like how you said, we'll never have everything all figured out, but that's okay. And it's easy to fall into that comparison trap, particularly with social media, where you're looking at other people and you think, oh, they've got it all together. They must know how to do everything. And reality is probably not, they don't. So, yeah, and we have so many resources easily available now. So just be willing to kind of put in the work and the time to be able to figure stuff out, get the right resources that you need, and 9 times out of 10 you'll figure it out. And when you do, and you actually put it into action, you'll look at it and go, wow, I did that. And that's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah, it's a process of building that self confidence when you do achieve those things.
Absolutely.
Now, what did you struggle with most starting your business? And how did you overcome it? Whether it be, those certain aspects of the business that you just didn't know, or maybe it was like limiting blocks or things like that.
I think when I first started out, like, I definitely had a creative vision for the Daily Pretty, in terms of what I wanted it to look like and feel like, and what I wanted it to do for the community. Um, so those things I kind of had pretty clear. But I think the biggest thing for me was when I actually sat down and thought about how I'm going to create this platform and what I want it to consist of. Um, the first thing was definitely the blog. That was sort of the first thing that we did, which is a pretty natural starting point when you're building a digital platform. But then from there, that was it for a while because I kind of really wasn't sure what direction I wanted to take it in. And I'm glad that it's gone the way it has. And of course, that took time and planning and reviewing and all of those things that you do. But yeah, I think that was definitely the the challenge was deciding kind of the next direction I was going to take it in terms of growing the platform.
Gotcha. Now, what do you do to set yourself up for success? So, whether it be morning or evening routines that really help you stay focused, or if there's certain things that you do throughout the day to help you stay on target with everything that you need to accomplish.
I think the biggest thing I do when I'm heading into a new week and trying to structure it as best I can is on a Sunday afternoon, I'll do this thing and I call it Hour of Power, where I'll just sit down for an hour. It doesn't have to be a whole hour if I'm kind of pretty good and I know what's happening for the week. And I'll just sit down and literally map out the week, what I've got on, what's happening, plan things out, even kind of do up my master task list. So then on Monday, I can, sit down and I refine that and work out like my top three for the day. So that's definitely helped me a lot because I still work full time as well. So it just helps me, yeah, get that focus. So when I wake up Monday morning, I don't feel overwhelmed with going into the office, but then also doing these other things. And it also helps me to plan, put things in place and plan it out so that I can use my time most efficiently. And if I start my Monday in that frame of mind, I definitely find the week flows a lot better. So that's probably the biggest thing that I do, um, pre heading into Monday. I try not to let it overrun my Sunday afternoon. So I limit it. I definitely limit it. But then I just feel a lot better, I find, heading into the week.
I'm on the same page as you, basically. I work a day job as well, full time. So having the podcast and a side hustle, just like you, I mean, you have to be on it. You have to stay organized and you have to plan out your week and you have to focus on your top three every day and things like that so that you're able to get everything done because it's hard. Like, I don't know if I'm the only one, but like, I feel like my day job sometimes I'm like mentally drained by the end of the day and I'm like, oh, how am I going to do this? And if I wasn't organized and already set up for success with knowing exactly what I needed to do, there's no way that I would be able to sit there and be like, okay, so what do I need to do now? It would be like Netflix and TV, like food, right? Like I'd be done for the day.
Definitely. And I find when I do have days like that, that's okay too. Like it's not the end of the world. Like I
Mm-hmm.
remember early on, I was pretty hard on myself and I'd be very like, no, you've got to push through and do this and this, you've got a deadline or you must do that and it really didn't serve me because I'd end up finding myself just completely exhausted and the quality of what you're actually putting out there for your community probably wasn't that great. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're better off just going, you know what, if I just don't do that right now and put it off or reschedule that or the outcome's probably going to be better. So, but that's tough too when you're really passionate about something and you're trying to juggle everything, and you've got this sort of driving passion behind you. It can be difficult to do that as well. So, it's all about
Definitely.
it's all about just trying to balance it out the best you can, which is easier said than done, but
Definitely. You know,
yeah.
you're always trying to achieve all these things because you're so passionate about this business. So you have all these goals and whatnot, and you want to move it forward and all that stuff. But even with myself, I found myself in my goal setting and whatnot, always coming back to being like, is this realistic? I need to be more realistic with what I want to achieve daily or weekly or monthly so that I'm not overwhelming myself and setting myself up for failure right off the bat.
Mm. Mm-hmm. I
And
think
it's okay. You're always going to have those nights where, like you said, where you can't do it. It's not going to happen. You need to take that night off. You need to have that flexibility in there.
mm, and I've definitely found, if I did push myself, it would probably take me twice as long to complete the task at hand. And then
Yes.
afterwards, I would think, why did I just force myself to do that? It took me twice as long. I got really frustrated because I wasn't feeling in the right headspace. I should have just put it aside, and then come back to it when I was feeling fresh. So yeah, I definitely do that a lot more now than I
Mhm.
did at the beginning.
It's fun how much you learn as you go, right? And you show yourself a lot more grace down the road.
Definitely.
Now, have you ever struggled personally with limiting beliefs or a negative mindset in your business? Has it been the comparison or imposter syndrome or feeling like you're not enough or anything like that?
100% yes. Um, and this is this is really interesting because it's a big part of the platform and what we talk about with other women, and when they share their stories, this comes up a lot. And I think it's a big part of what inspired me to start the platform, but then also through the journey, I found it's popped up so many times. But the reality is, when a challenge now presents itself, or something new, or like I remember early on, someone asked me to be on their podcast, and I was absolutely terrified. I thought, oh, I can't do that. There's no way I could be on someone's podcast. Like, why are they asking me? All of these terrible, horrible thoughts that we give ourselves. Whereas truth is, I should have just went, yeah, sure, and went for it. And then afterwards, what I would have learned from that experience would have been amazing. So next time that happened, I said, Haley, you're saying yes and you're going to do it, and it's going to be an amazing experience. And it was. So, yeah, I definitely have experienced that. And if anyone else is, you're not alone. And yeah, I think the best thing we can do for ourselves, sorry, is if it is something that, obviously is relevant to you and you are interested in, and you think it is going to benefit those listening or whoever's going to consume what you're putting out there, just have a go. Just put it out there and learn from the experience. And in the long run, it's just going to help you grow. And yeah, you'll definitely take a lot more benefit from that experience than if you hadn't have done it in the first place.
Hmm. I love that you brought that up. I mean, with a podcast, it's good to have guests on your podcast, but definitely, pitching yourself to other podcasts to appear on them is going to help as well grow your business and your podcast and whatnot. And now I'm also in that similar place where I have to pitch myself to other podcasts, and it's hard. It's hard kind of going into that sales mode and pumping yourself up a little bit and sharing that request with other people and feeling like, okay, am I enough? Like, am I good enough to, like, do I have a valuable story to share? Like, is anybody going to benefit from this? Like, I don't know. I feel like the whole pitching thing for me is something that I've struggled with as well.
Exactly, because it's a whole other situation to working on your business or your side hustle yourself. It completely flips it around, because then you're actually out there, like you say. It's almost like, yeah, you're going into selling mode essentially.
Hmm.
Even though selling can be a bit of a dirty word sometimes.
Yes.
But yeah, essentially that's what you're doing. You're putting your best foot forward, and you want to show that value that you bring through your work or through your business or your side hustle. And you want that to shine, and you want that to be what people take away, so that they're interested and they want to go see, they want to learn more and they want to explore it, and yeah, all of that kind of thing.
Hmm. Now, what are your thoughts on how we can increase our self worth and confidence so that we're able to show up in our business and be able to go after those big goals or, pitch ourselves, things like that?
This is another one that we definitely explore a lot. And I know a lot of women, it is something that they are challenged with. And I think, honestly, I don't think there's a one size fits all answer, because everyone's different and everyone's in a different stage of their lives and working on different things, and priorities and goals are different. But if I had to sort of say from my own experience, definitely, first of all, just don't be too hard on yourself. Like, take that approach and mindset of just being a little bit kinder to yourself, I think is a really good starting point. And I think today I'm definitely guilty of it, is not taking the time to actually pause and recognize what you have just achieved, or even if you're working on a big project, if you hit a milestone, actually pausing and going, wow, like I'm halfway through this project, that's amazing. Or yes, I've just ticked off that massive goal, or that priority, and just relishing in that a little bit more, because I think we all, because life is so fast paced, and
Hmm.
like we mentioned, Jessica, we're always looking for the next goal or thing we want to achieve, but really just taking time to recognize what you have achieved and give yourself a little pat on the back, and goes such a long way for that self-worth, self-love kind of thing that we all need to make sure that we're giving ourselves.
That's such a great reminder. So many of us, I hear it all the time, are just moving on to the next and totally disregarding what we just accomplished. And whether it's small or big, I mean, you need to take the time to acknowledge the work that you've put in and what you've accomplished. I think it's so important to do that.
And I think too, like even if you just do it on a time basis, like I know this year there's been a lot of change for a lot of people, and things haven't gone to plan, and it's been an absolutely crazy time. And we're heading into the last half of 2020, so it's easy to sit there and go, oh, I haven't done half the things that I'd planned, and this has happened and that's happened. But just flip that around and kind of say, okay, well, that didn't go to plan, but this is what I made happen instead, or this is how I adapted or changed, and this is where I am now versus where I was in January, and that's pretty amazing. And kind of just take stock of the environment around you, your operating environment, and the new challenges that you've had to overcome, because so many people have had to overcome all of these new set of challenges, and to still be in a good mindset and position and feeling like you're doing well and you're happy within yourself, then that within itself is an achievement, I think. So just little things like that, I think, go a long way.
Definitely agree with that. Now, you seem like a goal setter, given you've mentioned goals in your three most important tasks and whatnot. So, I would love to learn what your process is for defining what your goals are and how you stay on top of that action plan to achieve them.
Yeah, definitely. So I think previously my goal setting was probably a little bit more haphazard. I definitely knew I'd always have a picture in my mind of the next thing or what I wanted to do. Um, but then starting the daily pretty, so that I'm talking sort of pre TDP days, just through my career. But now definitely I've had to be a lot more, I guess, structured in the way that I do the planning and goal setting. So what I'll do, I'll simply just do, first of all, I guess, like a brain dump. So I'll get a blank piece of
Hmm.
paper. I'll just literally write everything down, and then I'll condense it into actual tangible headings, I guess. And then I will kind of prioritize those different um, topics. And then from there, I'll then break each one down and sort of prioritize time, when I plan to do that, how long it's going to take, urgency, resources, cost, all of those things. But then I think the main thing that I'll do with any goal setting is, particularly with TDP, is what's the benefit this is going to bring to our community? How are they going to respond to this, and how is it going to help them in their daily lives? Because that's kind of our brand mission and what we always come back to. So once I get clear on that, then that's when I go into sort of the detail and the more operational aspect of completing a new project, or even if it's just more like BAU type tasks. So that's it. And I'm like everyone, I use, all of the Google Calendar and all of those, but I still definitely come back to pen and paper, my planner, my to-do list. I still write everything down because that's just how I'm wired, and I find that's how I feel like I'm on top of things.
Hmm.
And when I can tick things off, it's having that pen and paper, which is actually a project that we're about to kick off, a new product that I'm working on. So stay tuned.
Oh, I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, yeah.
I definitely agree with the pen to paper. I'm the same way. I have a lot of stuff in Google Docs and Sheets and whatnot, but when it comes to like your to dos and all that type of stuff and like brain dumps, the lists are always on paper.
Definitely.
Yeah. I need to see it visually, I guess, like in my head.
And ticking things off is like, oh, it's the best thing ever.
Hmm.
I love it.
Very satisfying.
Yeah. So simple, but very powerful.
So, how do you make sure that you're not getting caught up in goals or work, that you start basing your identity on that success? So, whether it's the number of likes that you're getting, or the number of blog post hits, or the number of downloads on your podcast episodes, all of these things that you would amount to being success, basing your identity on them solely.
That's a really interesting one. And I think too, it's so easy in to fall into comparison traps and, comparing what you're doing and how far you're getting with a particular thing to others. Um, So, yeah, the first thing I do is try not to fall into that comparison trap. And then I find if I'm kind of just focusing on my own little lane and what I'm setting out to achieve, then that's a good start, because I'm not constantly looking at those things and thinking like it's not enough, I need more, it needs to be this, it needs to be that. So I think that's the first thing. I think your frame of mind is really important when it comes to that. And then I think in terms of it not defining who I am, or that's my identity, or I don't know how I do that. I think for me that's not really a priority for the Daily Pretty. I think the priority is more, as I mentioned before, the value that we provide for our
Mm-hmm.
community. That's what's more important to me. So if we do a blog post and say it only gets, I know I'm just pulling a number. It might only get 50 hits or something like that. I would prefer that than if it got 200 hits. But if out of that 50, 10 people took that away and went, wow, this has really made a difference. Whereas if there was 200 and no one kind of went away and implemented anything, or it actually helped them. So that's kind of how I I try and look at things, I guess, in terms of the value that we're providing rather than the numbers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I love the way that you look at that. It's such a healthier view on things. Definitely.
I mean, of course, we all do fall into that trap. It's not something,
Yes.
it's human nature, right? It's just part and parcel of being a human, but that's fine too. Like it's okay to have that little competitive streak or wanting to strive to do better.
Hmm.
But I don't think that should be your overarching um, reason why you're doing what you're doing.
Gotcha. Now, what advice would you have for those starting a side hustle to set them up for success?
I think the first thing would be just get as clear as you can, on, yeah, what you're setting out to do, and why. I think the why is really important. Um, and then I think also stop waiting, stop, yeah, stop thinking of reasons why you can't just start. I definitely did that. I sort of kept saying, "Oh, we'll launch this week because of this reason. Oh, I've got to push it back." Like, just stop that. Obviously you need to have certain things in place to launch, but I definitely used to obsess over minute details that just weren't important. So just try and limit that, and just go for it. And then in the early stages, definitely just don't be too hard on yourself. Just don't compare yourself to others. Just always come back to your why you're doing this. That kind of remember why you started. And then, yeah, enjoy the ride because each little stage that you experience generally is a one off. So enjoy that startup phase, enjoy that, first 6 months and relish in it and take it all in because once it happens and it passes, then you'll very quickly be on to the next thing.
Such great advice. That's so true. You only get one first time at most things.
I'm sure you can relate to that as well. You've probably
Yeah,
experienced it. Yeah.
definitely. So, what advice would you have for connecting with other people through your business and creating collaborations? This one's a tough one for some people and reaching out and trying to create those collaborations between companies or brands.
I think a big one with this is just ensuring that any collaborations that you do or people you work with or connections that you make, just make sure again you come back to your why and think about your community. Is this something that would interest them? Is this going to benefit them? And don't just, if something presents itself, don't necessarily do it just because it's there, because sometimes that could have a negative effect, rather than a positive effect. Um, so yeah, just be mindful of that when you are considering collabs for sure. And I mean, if you're pitching yourself, then just have your language sorted and just make sure that it's true to your brand, as well. So there's no surprises for who you're trying to collab with. They know right from the start, who you are and what you do and what the outcome is, for the collaboration. So on both sides, so just be clear and upfront. And I think too, in my experience, again, early in the early days, I probably obsessed a little bit too much on things that weren't so important. So just make sure that you're concentrating on things that are actually important to your community and the company or person you're collaborating with. And it's not about you and your business, it's about them and how you're serving them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Now, do you have any organization hacks or tips that have worked well for you in your business that would maybe help others starting out as well?
I think, like I mentioned, the hour of power, 100%. helps keep me organized. In terms of tools I use, definitely to-do list, pen, paper, as well as my Google spreadsheet, calendar. But then a big thing I also do is journaling. So, and it might only be a very short session every day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or it might be longer depending on what's going on. And that's where I don't know if you're familiar with journaling. It's pretty popular these days. But that just helps me clear my mind and helps me feel more focused if I'm actually, reflecting on things. And that's when, there's lots of different ways you can do it. And I'd suggest maybe doing some research and just finding what's best for you in terms of how you journal, or if it's just going to be a random brain dump of things.
Mhm.
But I think that helps because writing lists and that's all very technical, if you will, but you also need to make sure that you're looking after the other side of you so that you can feel fresh and ready to tackle your day. And then I think feeling more organized definitely comes from that feeling.
Yes, definitely. Journaling is definitely something that I've struggled with, and I've shared that many times.
Mm,
I just I didn't like the practice at all, and I think it was because I was just not do I didn't find the right practice for myself. So I finally went back to something that I had done many, many years ago. And it's not about writing down my feelings and all that stuff because that just didn't work for me for some reason.
mm,
Mine was more so writing down all of the things that I want as if they're already in the present. So I'm like focusing on what my vision is, my goals are, and all that stuff. So there are different forms of journaling for everybody. So don't give up. If you don't feel like it's working for you, try a different method, try a different journaling practice. But it's definitely beneficial, and I definitely agree with you. It's something that really helps.
absolutely.
Now, with self love, I would love to know what that means to you and what your practice looks like.
I think for me, I definitely love yoga. Um, for me, that's just something that helps me on so many different levels. It helps me relax. It helps my body to feel better. And when I stretch out and lay on the mat, and afterwards, that feeling of calm and relaxation and just switching off for 45 minutes and just focusing on your breath and moving your body. In saying that, when I say yoga, I do yin yoga, which is the very slow holding the poses for longer because that works for me best. Um, so that's definitely a big thing that I like to do. Other than that, I'm definitely a girly girl. Like I love face masks. I love putting on, doing my nails, a mani pedi, which I've become an expert at home doing that. Um, so yeah, I definitely love putting in a hair treatment, like having a little bit of a at home beauty afternoon while watching a show that I love. So yeah, I also find those little things are a good balance. On the flip side, but even just going for a walk or having a coffee in the sun or just those little things that tend to just make the biggest difference and just make you pause and feel grateful for what you have, I think is a really good self-love practice.
That's such great advice. So, before we end our interview today, I have some rapid fire questions from the community that I'd love to shoot your way.
Oh, okay.
The very the very first one is, what is your favorite fun activity to do that helps you get back into a creative mindset?
Um, wow. I don't fun activity. Probably online shopping. I don't know if that's actually a fun activity, but
I
um
think it is.
yeah, I think online shopping. I'm just gonna go with that.
All right. Now, what do you want to accomplish next in your business? So you said that you have something coming up that involves writing on paper, but what are your big aspirations for your business?
Yeah, definitely. So the next thing I'm working on is expanding our product range. So at the moment, we have a couple of t-shirts on our online store. So we have one design, and it's Empowered Women Empower Women. It's a beautiful organic cotton t-shirt. So definitely expanding our t-shirt range for women who want something that's comfortable, functional, but with a little bit of a girl power message. And we also have some cute downloadables on there as well, inspirational downloadables. But yeah, that stage two is definitely expanding the product range on our online store. So that's the big focus for the rest of 2020.
Amazing. I'm definitely going to keep my eye out for that. Definitely want to see what it is.
Yeah, it's in progress, so stay tuned.
Amazing.
Hmm.
And the last question is, what is on your reading list right now?
My reading list, I've
Or even
actually,
podcast?
yeah, it's funny. These days I've been listening to podcasts a lot more than reading, which,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's just what's working for me at the moment. And I'm really just into business podcasts at the moment. There's an Australian one by Mark Boris that I absolutely love because it's called The Mentor, because he has his range of guests is amazing. And he covers so many different topics. So that's what I've been listening to lately.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out. Sounds really good.
It's really good. And he's very like direct and tell this is how it is. Yeah, it's great.
I like that. No
Mm.
fluff. Just tell me how it is.
Yeah, definitely.
So, if anybody wants to learn more about you, where can they connect with you? Where do you hang out the most?
So definitely Instagram. So we have just the Daily Pretty is our main Instagram account. And then we have our Be the Girl podcast account, and you can find me over at Hayley TDP. And then our website is thedailypretty.com, and you can find Be the Girl podcast on all of your favorite, podcast channels.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hayley, for taking the time to share your personal journey and giving us such wonderful advice on how we can rise above negative self talk and go after our dreams.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Jessica, for having me. It's been great. I've loved chatting with you.
I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to www.projectloveco.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another unplugged conversation.